Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien. Lead! And Livingston have the lead! Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football related. My name is Angus and today I'm joined by Euan. Euan, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. Slightly disappointing weekend in terms of the men's team. Not the best of the result. Don't think the performance was bad, but obviously the result is what matters at the end of the day, which we'll obviously go into a bit more depth about. But our ladies' team had progress in the cup, which again we'll go on to discuss on the episode as well. What about yourself, mate? How was your weekend?
Yeah, very much the same. Ups and downs. Managed to keep myself out of trouble, unlike some people. But as always, you can find this episode as well as all of our others on your preferred podcast streaming sites. Just search for Talk Livi, so follow us or subscribe to ensure you don't miss another episode.
We'll start the episode off by discussing our home defeat to Ross County, as the Lions live to regret missed chances once again.
Next up, the Lionesses were in cup action against Falkirk as they safely made it into the hat for the next round.
And finally, we'll look ahead to our next game against St Johnstone as the Lions look to get back to winning ways.
The Lions took on Ross County at the weekend looking to return to winning ways, but it was a case of déjà vu for the Lions as despite dominating large spells of the game, Livi were hit with the ultimate sucker punch and fell to a 1-0 defeat. Euan, rough one to take, wasn't it?
Yes, kind of similar to last week, wasn't it? Against St Mirren in a way. We've put in what, in my eyes, was for large spells a very good performance and come away with absolutely nothing to show for it. And once again, we can only really blame ourselves that we've not taken anything from the game because we have created ample opportunities, and not just opportunities, bloody good opportunities throughout the 90 minutes. First half, I thought we were excellent. Ross County offered next to nothing, even in a counter-attacking sense, offered very, very little in the first half. Andrew Shinney's had an effort which has been blocked, which he hit from the edge of the box. Biggest glaring chance of the half was Curtis Guthrie's one, where Montano's zipped the ball across goal. He's managed to put it wide to the post from inside the 6-yard box. And yeah, it was just frustrating. We had a lot of the ball. I think it was over 60% possession. And across the game, 22 efforts on goal as well. We absolutely dominated Ross County, and I don't think anyone can really question the performance levels, in my opinion. There was a big incident in the first half, a tackle on Joel Nubley as he's got in behind. Keith Watson's made the tackle. There was a bit of debate about it on Sports Scene, and I can see why there's a bit of debate in terms of a red card. But for me, the only debate is what you're given the red card for. Is it because he's denied a clear goal scorer opportunity? I think that is the questionable bit. I don't know if the Ross County defender coming across would get there in time. I think he might be able to put some pressure on Joe. But for me, the tackle alone is a red card. It's a scissors motion. I thought it at the time, having seen it back. It's a reckless tackle. It's a dangerous tackle, and Keith Watson should have been shown a red card for that. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Whether that would have made any difference to the pattern of the game, who knows? But Ross County were offering little with 11 men on the park. For me, they'd offer even less with 10 men. But Joel and Dylan Bambula were constantly getting in behind, very tricky on the wings. Joel had a good effort, or good chance, right on half time. He's got in behind, great bit of skill, but for me, he's got to put the ball across the 6-yard box instead of going for the effort and goal from that angle. And then second half, first stages of the second half, it was very much the same. Well worked free kick. Pittman's had a shot blocked from Laidlaw, and Obalai had probably had the chance of the game. He's had 2 bites at it. The second one, if he lifts it, I think he's scoring from 2 yards out. But Laidlaw's done really well to make the save again. And then, as we mentioned, we got hit with the ultimate sucker punch. Sean Kelly's got caught under the ball, mistimed the jump for the header. It's a good initial effort by the Ross County wide player. I forgot his name. Apologies to Ross County fan, if you're listening in. But Awura Edwards has followed it in with a header, and as I say, it's the ultimate sucker punch. Ross County had offered nothing in the game prior to that, and Obalai's had an effort late on, which Laidlaw's saved pretty comfortably, palmed away. But as I say, Angus, we can only blame ourselves for not taking opportunities. We deserved more from that game than we got. But I take this as a positive for fans. I'd be more concerned if we weren't creating chances. I think it's good that we are creating opportunities, because there'll come a point where we're going to give a team a spanking if we continue to create these opportunities. But we need to be a little bit more clinical. I think feedback from looking online and being at the game as well, a lot of the chat was Anderson was on the bench, we'd missed a few of these opportunities, would Bruce take them? There's a good chance he would, but at the same time, I still think the players that were on the park need to take a bit of responsibility and should have taken the opportunities.
Regarding Anderson, though, thinking back at it, there's not really been much supply, though. The chances that have came from really the kind of the wide positions, or it's kind of fell to the edge of the box for like a midfielder. So I wouldn't even say, in all honesty, that Anderson being in those kind of areas is, would have made it. Him being on the park, especially in the first half, would have made much of a difference. Maybe because we know that he was there, they would switch the output of where we're putting the balls and everything like that. Perhaps that would make the biggest difference. But the ones that we had there on Saturday, I don't really think that we could really kind of say that Anderson would have done too much better. To be fair, there's just something strange going on now, where it seems as if we get into like really good positions and we won't shoot at certain points, and then there's others we'll shoot from quite stupid angles. There's quite a few we're getting to the touchline with the wide players and we're fizzing it at the goal, and it's it's only going further away from the goal. I think there was a couple that were going, they were whizzing past the goal, but they were going towards the corner flag, probably more so rather than towards the goal. And that edge of the box as well, the amount of balls that fall through there. And I think Jason Holt had a couple of, I think he won a few free kicks, to be fair, as well. But there are a couple of times it's just screaming for somebody to have like a pop. But we keep on trying to go into the box, keep playing a wee bit more. Maybe that's something we need to look at. Maybe we need somebody who's a wee bit more confident. So an edge of the box is going to at least get like a shot on target. There was times though where we're getting it 30 yards out, you can see somebody lining it up, and they just completely just blurred it out into the stand. Essentially, it's really bizarre because you're talking about that first hour or so that we're absolutely dominant, and I don't think we can really say that there's been as many performances that we've ever seen that Livingston have been so great. I mean, the team got like a pretty good ovation going off the park for how well it played at half time. Going into the second half, though, I do think that we resorted to become a wee bit desperate too quickly. We lost a bit of the patience of doing what we've been doing so well, kind of creating the chances from the wide areas and whatnot. We started, going long, and with the back line that Ross County had, I think, at one point they were playing basically with a back four that had 3 centre halves in it and a natural left back. They were just playing into their hands essentially and making it. And I guess in that kind of regard as well, you've got to give Ross County some credit for the way they defended. Midweek they lost 5-0 to Motherwell, so I don't think many of their fans would have thought that they'd be coming to us and getting a clean sheet. In all honesty, I don't think that they were tremendously good defensively, as you've mentioned, the Keith Watson challenge on Newbley. For a couple of them that they're maybe lucky with, maybe not to receive some more bookings in that as well. But in that second half, I thought to a man, their defensive performance is great. Then again, we can only blame ourselves. There's plenty of chances, there's plenty of opportunities, but yeah, it's a frustrating one. kind of going back to that initial point there about Anderson and Euan about the kind of the attacking changes. You're looking at the squad before the match started, and you see that only Anderson is the proper attacking player on that bench. There's an argument you can say that Stephen Kelly is a little bit as a centre mid, but he's still getting used to the team. Penrice can play forward, or you can move somebody else. Do you think we're starting to see that we talked a lot pre-season about maybe like another winger or so? Are we starting to see that we are a bit light in those forward areas?
I've spoke about it a lot. I think we've got a number of players who can play in certain positions. You mentioned Penrice can play a little bit further forward. Christian Montano would have been one of the wide options as well, albeit he's had a fantastic season playing at left back. I think Nubli Bahambula are showing their qualities a little bit more regularly now. Bahambula in particular, since he's kind of broke into the team starting. Shinnie can play in the forward areas as well. And then if you look at the strikers, your out and out strikers, you've got Anderson, Guthrie, and Goncalves who can play as the centre forward. I think there's plenty of options. Obviously, Goncalves is out injured. There's not a lot you can do about that at this moment in time. And we've had a few other injuries here or there as well. The likes of Penrice has been injured at the start of the campaign. And Stephen Kelly's obviously just come in to the side as well. And, Shinnie's come into the starting 11. Omiyonga was out injured. There's another one, Shinnie, who might have been able to play in the forward area, for example, and given us another option in there. So I wouldn't say we're overly light in there, but for me, I said it last week against St Mirren, I want to see Anderson back in the starting 11. Don't think Guthrie's played badly at all since he's come in, but Anderson's just that natural number 9 in terms of a goal scorer with an instinct inside the 18-yard box. And I think Bahambula and Nubli are very creative and are creating opportunities for the side. And you want your most natural goal scorer in there, and that's Anderson. And if there's a way that we can get him back into the side, I don't know what his situation is with his fitness. I know he's had a few setbacks in terms of his recovery from the injury he had last season during pre-season and the start of this campaign. So I don't know the full situation with that, but I'd like to see Anderson getting more minutes and getting back in the side, because it's an obvious one for us fans looking from the outside in, is that you've got your top goal scorers missing and we're struggling to put the ball in the net. It's you put 2 and 2 together in that situation. What about yourself, Angus? I know you've probably got a slightly different opinion to myself on the squad matter.
Yeah, I'm not as much of a fan as of having, kind of players who can do. I mean, I think that sounds silly a wee bit. I would prefer players to be, natural players to be in those natural positions. You mentioned like Shinnie, and that could do a good job in the forward line. And yeah, I think he's pretty decent in there. But I think, just having those options, especially in those wide areas as well. I think being a wide player or central compared to a central player is such a different matter that, it does make such a difference having somebody natural out there. You look back, we had Forrest and Bailey last season. We've only really replaced them with Bahambula as an actual winger. Josh Mullins went out on loan again. So I would say that, I think most of the fans had kind of thought that as well, that, we're a winger short trying to go into this season. And yeah, I think, obviously you mentioned Goncalves was injured as well today. Omiyonga dropping out, meant Shinnie had to drop out. That's 2 players that, have kind of came out of the side. And then that means that we've only had 1 player who can, come on as an attacking change. I don't think that's, strong enough, especially when it's Anderson who hasn't had much fitness. Imagine Anderson, on the Thursday that had pulled up injured. We would have been going into the game essentially with no fit attacking players in mind, due to 2 attacking injuries and 1 centre midfielder dropping out as well. But I think it's, as you said though, the fact that, we're creating these chances is the most positive thing. And, we've seen a couple of teams give out some hammerings lately, quite out of the blue. Obviously Dundee United just there against Aberdeen with a 4-0. Even Motherwell to an extent. I wouldn't say their attacking threats are that great, but they went and put 5 past Ross County as well. So perhaps this is going to happen for us at some point. Hopefully next week, and we avoid a very, very drab game against St Johnstone yet again. But it's an interesting one for us to go on. And Davies talked about maybe changing some things up. I wonder what that's going to be. Just looking at the personnel, to me, that maybe suggests perhaps a move to a back 3, because I think you're going to be keeping that midfield free to give you that base. I think that's one of the strongest aspects of our side. you've got the likes of Newbley and Anderson who could play through the middle together, perhaps with wide with the likes of Devlin and maybe Montano as wing backs. Maybe that's going to be such a change, or maybe it's going to be like subtle tweaks, maybe new personnel. Who knows? But it's going to be interesting. Have you got any thoughts as to what Davey might be thinking about changing there?
I don't know. we look at.
As long as Marvin Bartley doesn't end up on the left wing again.
I've said it before on this podcast, Angus. Davey does like a wee tinker now and then with the side and the shape occasionally as well. A lot of it can depend on who we're playing. Next week we're coming up against a side that notoriously play a back three or a back five in St Johnstone over the last couple of seasons under Callum Davidson. So whether that's maybe any thinking for next week, we'll probably talk about that a bit more in depth with the St Johnstone game. But I would be more concerned if we were playing badly. Other than the Motherwell performance this season in the second half against Aberdeen, I don't think we've played badly this season. No. Even the game, we've lost the last couple of games, but we deserve so much more from the game. But it's just a case of putting the ball in the net. So I don't think the system's not working. I don't think the personnel's not working. It's just a case that we're not taking opportunities, and that's just been reflective the last couple of weeks. And that's not me being, Mr. Positivity. And, I don't think the team's playing badly, so I'm not going to criticise them in that sense. So, yeah, Davey may well make a tweak here or there. And as I say, he's been known to do that since he's taken the job on. So it wouldn't overly surprise me if he maybe tries something next week against St Johnstone, because I know in the past he's matched them up and we've been fairly successful doing that at times. Certainly the season we finished in the top six and had that great unbeaten run, we matched them up a couple of times and had a couple of decent results against them. So, yeah, I don't know whether that might be in his thinking for next week.
Niels, I think there's just a wee bit of a frustration coming from the fact that these last couple of games not played badly, but you look at it, it's like if we'd won the last two games, we'd be in third place right now. Whereas now, we're sitting only 4 points above the playoff spot, which is, probably, it can be a wee bit deflating. And, I think some people can start to maybe panic a little bit after seeing that. But again, as you said, see if we're playing badly and playing poorly in these kind of situations, then that would be a lot more concerning. I think, the performances have been encouraging. There is a lot to, take credit for. It's not as if, we're having to come up with a complete new game plan or something like that, to try and improve everything. It is just something simple as, we're not putting in the back of the net, which obviously is the most important part of football. But, hopefully with the likes of Anderson getting back to full fitness, that'll come. Maybe that's going to be the spark that, ends up igniting our season, in all honesty. We've seen, the likes of Montano and Newbley have deservedly earned great plaudits this season so far. Maybe the likes of Anderson playing off of them two is going to be, somebody else is going to, kind of burst into life. But, yeah, I think it's a bit too soon as well for fans to start, going a wee bit OTT in regards to certain playing styles or whatever like that. You can sure be critical or have an opinion or whatnot, but some things that can get said, we're coming off of two defeats that are disappointing. Of course, I think every fan at the club is going to be disappointed with what's happened these last two games, but there's plenty of good so far this season. It wouldn't be like Livingston to not have a season that has its, peaks and dips in that. Mainly just got to keep on supporting the team and getting behind the players and, not, resorting to stupidity at times. But I think we kind of covered everything basically here. There's not too much more, to go on about it. Any further thoughts on Ross County, Euan? I mean, is there anything over? I mean, we touched on them defensively there. Is there anything that you could say? Obviously they've been kind of sitting near the bottom of the table this season. Does that surprise you based on how they've played, or not much to take from this game?
No, it doesn't overly surprise me that they've struggled at the start of this season. I know I had them as a bit of a wild card this year to challenge for the top six. They have had to replace kind of key players, and talking to Ramsey about them, they've missed that kind of creative spark in the final third in particular, which I think was evident to see it at the weekend there. They're coming off the back of a 5-0 defeat. I think anyone in their granny could have told you that they were going to try and come to Livi and frustrate and be difficult to break down and probably sit in a little bit more after a defeat like that. And that's exactly what we got from Ross County at the weekend. But it was one of those games, the more chances we missed, you could just sense a sucker punch coming. They were going to have a moment in the game, and that's exactly what happened. They took their opportunity when it came. And my dad often comes away from games and he'll always say, "Oh, I hate losing games when we're the better team," but you get what you deserve in games, and we didn't take chances, so we didn't deserve to win the game in that sense, and Ross County did. And that's the simple matter of it. I think the frustration comes from our fans as well, Angus, you were touching on it, was folk maybe looked at these games against St Mirren and Ross County as games we should win, right, as a way. But I think the league's that tight. Anyone can beat anyone. You look at Dundee United giving Aberdeen an absolute doing at the weekend, for example, who hadn't won a game in the league this season. I think anyone can beat anyone outside the Old Firm in the league this year, and that's a few of the results this weekend are just clear evidence of that. Ross County will be looking at us as a great opportunity for 3 points. St Mirren would have looked the same as well. Granted, they're games that we would probably earmark at the start of the season as games we would look to win, but then again, you can flip that. We picked up 3 points against Hearts. We picked up 3 points against Hibs. Probably games you would look at and maybe go, not expected to pick up 3 points on those ones. So it swings and roundabouts, and I'm sure the team will come good. And I urge fans not to press the panic button too soon. And we are only, 9 games into the season. We've got a lot of football to play this year. So, yeah, let's just get behind the team, and I'm sure they'll come good as the season goes on. The Lionesses were in cup action against Falkirk as they visited West Lothian. Goals from Ashley Fish and Gemma Mason would secure progress to the next round. Angus, you were there for the most part of the game. Typical student running late. What did you make of the game, of what you saw of the game?
Well, I'll sum this up for you. So basically, I didn't get to see the first half, sadly, which is unfortunately when the 2 goals were. So I didn't get to see any of the action.
Is that not the second time this year that's happened to you? Was there not a game that kicked off something like half an hour earlier than what you thought? And I'd seen both. I think it was the Morton game last season.
Was it last season? I think it might have been the tail end of last season, actually. Maybe this is what's got to happen. Maybe I'll just randomly show up at a game, maybe like 75 minutes in, and we'll be winning like 8-0 or something like that, and then nothing will happen the rest. And now I said that, I'm definitely going to be told never to come back again or whatnot. I'm sure they've had a couple of pops on Twitter about that already, to be fair. But yeah, speaking to Paul and Jordan after the game, and I said that to them. I was like, "Oh, I've only seen the second half." Both of them literally replied with, "Oh, you were only there for the worst part then." So I guess that can kind of maybe tell you kind of affair it was. Obviously the first half, goal from Ashley Fish. Apparently some really nice play between her and Rebecca Giaconelli. I'm looking forward to seeing the footage from that goal, just basically because of the way it was described on the Twitter. And then Gemma Mason as well, scoring directly from a corner. So some good things to possibly see. But yeah, unfortunately not when I was there. But yeah, going into the second half, Falkirk, are in the league below. I wasn't sure what to expect, and I think Falkirk were fairly impressive. I think they had quite a quick forward up front who was doing well to get to try and cause some issues and go forward. But something that I've really noticed lately is that Charlotte Ferguson's improved on that kind of, not necessarily being like a sweeper keeper, but being very, very quick off her line, and making some crucial blocks or tackles and being kind of calm on the ball. So yeah, single out some praise for her in the recent weeks, in the most recent games for doing so. But yeah, we kind of talked about last week where there wasn't enough people kind of like looking for the ball. The creative side of the game wasn't too great, and it was kind of a similar story here, which I think will be a little disappointing, especially against kind of lower league opposition. I think sometimes there's the same kind of style of the play. The back three, the midfield, there wasn't too much kind of interchange between them. One was sitting deep, one was maybe sitting too far forward, and then you had like Stacey in the middle, kind of covering quite a lot of ground. But not an awful lot of possession-based football to kind of carve many chances open. So I think that'll be very disappointing. Speaking to Paul about that, he was disappointed as well. He'd said to me that in training they'd been working on possession throughout the week, but hadn't quite came off. And can only assume that maybe the first half was a bit more of a the same story, but the second half definitely was as well. In saying that, though, I don't think that the girls were ever, under a great amount of pressure. Falkirk were, they had pace up front, but, the likes of Jess and that were managing to deal with it, with the back three being what it is, being very, very solid. I think that's what their 4th or 5th clean sheet this season. It's, they're something that, they've really improved on. Yeah, the likes of Jess, Tash Frew, and Fiona Walker at the back, kind of deal with most things. So, yeah, fair play to them for, kind of staying switched on the whole time. There's been plenty of games. It's a new thing that, speaking to Paul quite a lot, the thing is that they're battling for performances like this now. And, it's a kind of game that maybe last season would have seen them maybe not lose the game, but, make it a wee bit more nervy for themselves by, conceding a slack goal late on. But it definitely
I was going to kind of chip in on that because we've spoke about it at length on the podcast as well. And when we've been at games that, even the games this year, those were games that they might have let teams back in. And as you say, make it a bit more nervy and a little bit more tense as the game wears on. Whilst this year, I think they're doing the ugly side of the game a lot better and closing games out. As you mentioned, clean sheet wise, it's close to matching last season. So that's a positive in itself. And you'd like to think as the season wears on that, the possession side of it, the creativity side of it will probably start to click as the season moves on.
Yeah, definitely. So it used to be a thing last season where, no matter if we're 2 goals up, I'd be sitting in the final 10 minutes being like, the other team's going to score here. That's kind of slowly starting to disappear, which is, a great thing to have. And, that's a testament, to the defenders kind of involved in that in the team, for having that wee bit of extra grit about them this season. The league is very much very competitive this season, and to keep on having these kind of performances, winning the ugly way, something that people always say about like championship winning teams. It's winning like 1-0 in a scrappy way, or that it's a sign of champions, and that pulling out these results when despite not playing too well. And hopefully that is the case for them, and we'll start to add that creative side to our game because we all know that we've got some great creative players in there. You can only look at the goals that Ashley and Jen scored last season. Shannon Mulligan with a lot as well. Even Jess from corners and that as well. Hopefully this kind of side will come back into the game as they go on. And speaking to Paul, he's very much hoping that comes next week against Renfrew, and what's going to be a massive game. The game there as well also allowed for a wee bit of rotation for the team. Abby Mackay came in up front. Shannon Mulligan was rested, so was Jen Dodds as well. So there's a wee bit of change there to give some of our players a wee bit of game time. Speaking to Paul, he was talking about Abby Mackay and Eve Somerville as 2 young players, so it's good to see, a wee bit of a glimpse of the future, perhaps. Some of the younger players coming through and taking a chance. At wing backs as well, Erin Burns and Sharon Hughes-Lee came back into the side. So I think, perhaps there's going to be a bit of food for thought now for Paul for, this coming game there. I think the wing backs has been something that the team's not really had a proper set players in those positions just yet. I think both players, if I'm correct, I think Erin had a couple of injuries at the start of the season, so we've not properly seen an awful lot of her. Maybe this is going to be her coming into the frame of things and, getting some more game time. But yeah, good to see, the squad's getting improved and there's a wee bit of depth there now. Hopefully can remain injury free. I think maybe, and next week it's going to be, the kind of the tried and trusted there. But it's going to be a cracking game next weekend. I'm going to try and get to it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to try and figure out where on earth Renfrew play. But yeah, it seems like a game not to miss.
I'm going to assume they play in Renfrew for a start.
Well, you never know, to be fair, because for example, like Hibs ladies were playing at our stadium last year, and
that is true. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
But yeah, hopefully it'll be another good week for them. And the ultimate thing at the end of the day is that they're into the next round of the cup, the Championship and League One Cup. I think it's the quarterfinals that they're into now. With Livingston being second place in our league table right now, I think they're going to be looking to go and win the whole thing, in all honesty, and hopefully a decent enough draw for us as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a good opportunity for silverware, and that would be, it's another competition, as you mentioned. The girls should be looking to try and get to the latter stages of. In terms of the game next week, massive game against Renfrew, who they've already beaten this season, but it's a top of the table clash going away from home. I know the results have been slightly different away from home. They dropped points to Dryburgh on the opening day of the season and lost at Rossvale, so I'm sure it will be a very, very difficult game. But anyone that's at a loose end next Sunday, I would encourage you to try and get along and support the girls for what's a massive game, and it would put them clear at the top of the league as well, which would be a good achievement at this early stage in the season.
Yeah, definitely. So these are the kind of games that could define who wins the title at the end of the year. If we were to come away from with an away victory against Renfrew, that is a massive statement for the league. But yeah, fingers crossed, we get that result and continue the winning ways. Next up for Livy is a visit from St Johnstone to the Tony Macaroni Arena. Euan, is it going to be the same old with St Johnstone?
They're a team for some reason that just filled me with dread. St Johnstone. I don't know if this is just continued PTSD from the League Cup final and then essentially ruining our season that year. Single-handedly ruining our season. But St Johnstone it looks like they've turned a little bit of a corner from last year. They obviously stayed up through the playoffs last season. They've lost a few big players right down the spine of their team, in particular, like Xander Clark, Sean Rooney, Callum Hendry, who made a big difference second half of last season for them in terms of his goals. Very important in helping them avoid the drop. So they've had a busy window. They've brought in a lot of experienced players like Andy Considine, Dre Wright, Jamie Murphy. Also signed in Nicky Clark, who I think is a fantastic footballer, who, can't really understand why Dundee United let him go when he's been their top goal scorer for the last 3 years, but that's more on Dundee United. But I think he's a good bit of business for St Johnstone, and yeah, I think they've turned a little bit of a corner. They were incredibly unlucky at the weekend to lose late on against Celtic. Bit daft the goal that they conceded, but certainly looking at them, I think they're maybe offering a little bit more in an attacking sense than they did last year. But they probably look a little bit more frail defensively, just comparing the stats for this season compared to last year already. So, yeah, I think they'll be a little bit more open than we normally get from St Johnstone. I think the players we need to watch out for. Stevie May's been in very good form the last couple of weeks. He's got 3 assists already this season, a couple of goals as well. He's in a good bit of form just now for them, so he'll be one to watch, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, having spoke to a couple of guys that I know that are St Johnstone fans, I think they are relatively content so far this year with how they're looking, but we kind of know what to expect from St Johnstone. You can expect them to play a back three. It's a system Callum Davidson's kind of stuck with since he's been in the job. And I say this every time you play St Johnstone, I think the first goal is vitally, vitally important in the game. And that's something we've not managed to get in the last couple of games, and it's came back to haunt us. And I think what we need to be is very, very clinical against them and take any opportunities that we can. And I think if we do take the lead in the game, that could prove very beneficial, because we've seen what we've been like earlier on in the season when we've taken the lead in games. We've been very good at closing teams out. We'll use Dundee United, Hearts, Kilmarnock as an example of that. So I think it's vitally important that the first goal could prove very decisive in the game.
Yeah, it's always the same kind of thing we expect with St Johnstone. I think they've had, probably the edge of, kind of grinding out those results lately. What they won the last one 1-0, albeit due to dubious circumstances with no wait. Where did we play St Johnstone at home again before the last day of the season?
Yeah, it was 1 each.
Fitzy
equalised later on.
That'll be it. Then the one before that is the one that we should have had the penalty for, which, we ended up losing 1-0. Before that as well, I think it was a midweek game against St Johnstone that they defeated us 2-1, I believe.
Yeah.
So, we're due them a result as well. I think before that it was the 3-0 victory at McDermott Park, which seems quite a long time ago now, to be fair, considering it was only, roughly around the same time last year.
I think it's close to a year ago, that game, because it was the October international break. We played them just after that, so yeah, it's close to a year since that. What was in my opinion, a bit of a turning point last year for us.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it could be a similar story again. Hopefully for us, it is very much that. As you said, we're probably going to be due a team of hammering, so maybe it's going to be this time here. But I think St Johnstone, although they lost to Celtic at the weekend there, I think they did show that they have a wee bit. Hopefully, though, the likes of Trey Wright will continue to, just let the ball go past them, and we can get a wee late winner if need be or whatnot. But yeah, I think the likes of Stevie May, somebody, I'm going to share this with you, Euan. See if you were ever asked the question of, the best like individual performances you've witnessed at like a live game. Stevie May is one of those ones for me, and it was when he played for Hamilton against us, I think in the Championship, and I believe he scored a hat trick and came off. For some reason, that stuck with me all this time. Is one, it's like the first thing that comes to my head is one of the best individual performances I've ever witnessed from a player. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you. And so the fact that
I'm pretty sure Stevie May scored maybe 5 goals against us that year.
yeah,
I would need to double check. That's off the top of my head, but yeah, you're certainly right. It was a hat trick at Livi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As well, and we got a bit of a doing, but he was excellent for Accies that year from memory.
And I think because of that, I've just always been fearful of Stevie May as well. I think he's had, he had a really good beginning to his career, like following on from that, and it kind of took a wee bit of a dive there. But I always do think that there is talent in there. I mean, caused us plenty of issues in that in the past and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully there's not a repeat of that. I mean, I'm talking about a game that was like 8 years ago or something like that. But yeah, I just thought that'd be an interesting tidbit for you.
well, here's an interesting question for you. So we got a question after the Ross County game from one of the Semples, my preferred of the Semple brothers, Stuart.
Oh, everybody's favourite Semple.
Yeah, everyone's favourite Semple, because Andy's to put it bluntly, a fucking prick. But
jeez.
But no, Stuart asked us the question: is the St Johnstone game must win?
I would be inclined to say yes, just because of that gap between us and the playoffs is getting each very much closer. I think is after this that we then go and play the 2 Old Firm sides. So you're adding on to that there's those 2 games that we could easily end up with. If we lose against St Johnstone, then it could easily be 5 losses in a row, which could have a dampening effect on the team. So I think in that kind of way, I think as well, just the fact that the disappointment, I think the team will be will be telling themselves it's a must win, just because they want to get that hood off the back, they want to make things right. But yeah, I think we should be looking to take all 3 points here for sure, and I think maybe there would be some rights to be a bit disappointed if not.
Yeah, I wouldn't go down the route of saying it's a must win when we're 9 games into the league season. I don't think our start to the season's been that bad. I think if you look at our points compared to this stage last season, I think we're probably pretty similar, to be honest, coming into the tail end of this first third of the fixtures. So I would more go down the route of a must not lose. I think if we were to lose this game again, and then go into the next 2 Old Firm games against the Old Firm, where you're more than likely going to struggle to pick up points, I think losing 5 on the bounce, I think just even managing to get a point against St Johnstone, just kind of ending that little run of defeats and getting another point on the board would be decent enough. But obviously, I'm sure it's a game that the team and Davy will be looking to target 3 points in. But as I mentioned earlier on, flip that the other way, I'm sure St Johnstone will be looking at this game and targeting 3 points in it. So it's that kind of scenario. But yeah, it's a big game for us because, as you mentioned, the fixtures that follow it are very difficult, and you'd suspect that we'll struggle to pick up points in. So yeah, it's a game we really need to be targeting 3 points, but certainly at least try and not lose the game, at least pick up a point and then end that little kind of run of defeats. But let's go predictions, Angus, then. What are you expecting?
It's bloody St Johnstone, isn't it? So maybe it's a wee bit pessimistic, but I'm going to go 1-1. I just know what these games are like. We've sat through enough of them. They're often, pretty drab affairs. I'll back us to score, but yeah, I can see it being quite a dull one. One that doesn't have too much to separate us. I'll go a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to be a little bit more positive, and I think that the last couple of performances have been good enough to get results. I think we're going to get back to the grind at the weekend, and we're going to grind out a 1-0 win. I don't think it's going to be a classic affair, as we've mentioned, against St Johnstone. It's very rare that we've had one of those since we've been promoted to the top flight. So, yeah, I think it's going to go along the same sort of pattern, and it's going to be a pretty gritty game, but I reckon we'll get the 3 points for a 1-0 win. But guys, let us know your thoughts, your predictions for the game as well, and hopefully we can see a few of the new faces that we saw down at the stadium after the Ross County game as well. Hopefully the result didn't put too many folk off, and we can see a few more bums on seats for what's a big game for the team. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in week in, week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so search Talk Livi to find us. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our podcasts, including this one, and all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week, and thanks again to all our listeners for tuning in, week out as you do. Let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team.
Armaville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, to the Premiership.